Your assignment for the balance module is to create two flags. One is going to feature asymmetrical balance. We're going to definitely do that one because it's the most common kind of balance and you want to get good at achieving it. Then, using the same visual elements, you're going to rearrange, reconfigure, and adapt to create a second flag that is either symmetrical, features an all-over pattern, or is crystallographic. As part of this assignment, you're going to invent an organization. It could be a real organization, but you can also make up anything you want. Think of the kinds of colors that would be appropriate to communicate something. You're also going to need to come up with imagery. Remember, it's a flag, so you want clear graphic imagery that can be read quickly. We're going to look at some student examples and talk about choices that have worked well and problems to avoid. This is the flag for the Wichita Skateboarding Association. You can see that he's chosen appropriate imagery. We've got the deck at an exciting diagonal angle. He's got this curve to reference the half pipe, and the colors make sense. This gray is actually grip tape, the sandpapery stuff on top of your deck. And then black and white, because we're awesome and radical. His asymmetrically balanced one works out pretty well. We've got a strong shape, but it is balanced by another shape over here. The problem starts with his symmetrical flag. The most obvious problem with it is that it's not symmetrical. In the critique for this, I pointed out that it wasn't symmetrical, and he jumped in with, "Oh, I know, dude, but I couldn't figure out a way to create a symmetrical flag." I was like, well, actually, there's a relatively straightforward solution that would work pretty well. No, I mean, I tried to have it go straight up and down so that it would be the same on both sides, but then it just looked like a black tongue depressor and nobody wants to put that in their mouth. Okay, but that's not the solution I was thinking of. There's actually a relatively easy change that you could make that would allow you to, but I thought about that too. And if I turned it sideways so that you're looking on the edge of the deck and you have the wheels on both sides, yeah, it would be symmetrical, but they would look like sunglasses, and that's not right. True. But what about cross decks, like a pirate flag? You have one going in one direction and another going in the other direction. They cross in the middle. Hey, cool. It looks like a big giant X. It's even more radical. Yay. Part of the idea of this assignment is that your job in the future is going to involve you creating works of art that are varied but still successful. If you're going to be a fine artist, you want your work to be consistent enough that people know that it's by you, but you also want to make sure that you've got at least some variation in there or you'll grow bored. If you're a graphic designer, this is your life. You're going to be creating multiple versions with basically the same imagery. You've got to make it work on a website and a business card and packaging, and you got to come up with a logo, and what's going to happen a lot is that you're going to have to come up with multiple possibilities and pitch them to the client. And they all have to be good, because I can guarantee you they will pick the one you hate. So you got to make them all good. How can I rearrange these elements to create two successful designs instead of just one? We've got two more students who are trying. And over here, we have another nicely asymmetrically balanced. We've got the color of the coffee, the color of the cream, the color of the coffee when I put the cream in it, how I get the coffee to my mouth, and how the coffee makes me feel. This one's working pretty well. We've got a nice, clean, simple shape, and then an exciting element to balance it on the other side. But again, the symmetrical flag isn't. I pointed this out in the critique, and the student's response was, well, yeah, but if I put a handle on the other side, then it looks like a sippy cup, and babies shouldn't drink coffee. Which is true. But wouldn't it be nice if there was an iconic coffee cup, one that maybe was a little wider at the top and then kind of tapered down? Maybe it could have a big green circle in the middle, Or we don't even need that, especially if we give it just the right kind of lid that staggers. We would still be able to create flags that were symmetrical and asymmetrical. One thing that I don't want you to do is to just adapt a design that exists in the real world. You can't just steal somebody else's idea. Plus also, this is a really good example of why that other one was better. Remember how we talked about how important the rise of the other wave was to create balance? There really isn't anything to look at over here. The one thing that might salvage it is the sense of motion that gets us to move in that direction. It does communicate the intent well. If you go kayaking in the white water, you will die. His symmetrical flag actually is symmetrical, but his symmetrical flag is trying to communicate that if you hunt the white whale, you will die. It's different. One thing that you do want to consider is how to reconfigure. We don't have to have exactly the same number of things. We don't have to have exactly the same configuration. You can play with scale, but basically what you want to do is have essentially the same visual elements. Think about how much red you're using and try to use about the same amount of red in your other design. Think about the shapes that you've got and figure out how to reconfigure them. I actually really like this one because it's so simple. It's a flag for a DJ. And so we have the headphones, and then the turntable, and then the speaker, and then the sound wave. And to create the asymmetrical one, it really doesn't take that much. The flare of the sound wave is enough to activate this space to balance out the headphones. It's clean, it's simple, but it works. Please don't just adapt somebody else's design. I've seen the American flag, as it turns out, and I know where your design came from. I still have to include it in my slide talk because I don't have very many examples of somebody trying to create an all-over pattern. This one is actually working pretty well because even though the bow is off center, so it's not symmetrical, if you repeat it enough times, it doesn't matter. We have an all-over composition that creates a sense of balance. Now, this is actually a pretty good example, but please do not just steal someone else's design. And here I've seen this solution so many times, where basically we're going to go on a trip through Scandinavia, and we're going to turn the Danish flag into the Swedish flag and have our own imagery in there. One thing I will point out is that this person has done a better than average job. I especially like the way in which she used felt and ribbon to create the Fort Collins Knitting Association flag. The material choices were nice, and actually her logo works well too. One note on materials though. This is a project that might be better to create in Photoshop or with collage, because then you can replicate your imagery and slide it around on the picture plane and try it in a couple of different places. Who said a flag has to be horizontal? I never said a flag has to be horizontal. If you want to make your Doctor Who is Cool flag vertical, you go right ahead and make your Doctor Who flag vertical. Please do not rip off somebody. Okay, this one's good.